Hey guys, Amy Curtis here, and today I wanted to talk to you about friendship. I've actually wanted to do a video about this topic for quite some time now. I even started a few times and just really was not happy with what I got, and so I decided to trash it and start over. But it's such an important topic because it affects us all on such a deep, profound level. In fact, Dr. Dean Ornish, he's quoted as saying that lack of relationships more than any other factor leads to premature death. ah, I'm quoting him directly now. He says, "I'm not aware of any other factor in medicine than intimacy and love. Not diet, not smoking, not exercise, not stress, not genetics, not drugs, not surgery, that has a greater impact on our quality of life, incidence of illness, and premature death from all causes." That's pretty intense when you think about it. That lack of relationships is like the number one factor in our happiness and overall well-being, including our health, which is really interesting. Centarians that exist in the world. Most of the centarians, I believe, and by centarian I mean people who live to be over 100 years old. That's a centarian. The vast majority of centarians alive today, they're in Italy, like islands of Italy, Sardinia, and Japan, and the Okinawa island has a disproportionate number of centarians. And something that both of these areas have in common, almost all cultures where people live to ripe old ages with extremely clear, sharp, focused minds have community as an integral part of their lifestyle. They have really tight-knit friendship groups, and they are very social beings, and they're constantly interacting with the people in their community. And this is a big part of why they live so long. It's not the only part, but it's a really important part. I really wanted to do a video about this topic for a very long time because it's so important to our well-being. And in the last few years, I have been traveling a lot. In the last 3 years, I believe, I've circumnavigated the globe twice, gone completely around the world and around again, and actually back and forth another half a few times. And I've met so many people, and I really love meeting people. I really enjoy it. But not all of these people that I meet become friends. I recently saw a TED Talk with a woman named Shasta Nelson who talks about what she refers to as Frientimacy, and she discusses the 3 requirements of all healthy friendships. Because obviously not every relationship, not every friendship is a healthy one. There are a lot of relationships out there that are out of balance energetically and sometimes also just physically. And in this TED Talk, which I'll put a link below for anyone who wants to watch it, she discusses what she refers to as an epidemic of loneliness that's occurring today. We are more connected than we have ever been with our phones, with social media, and yet we seem to be more lonely than ever. That word friend, we even use very loosely. We have Facebook friends, most of whom we haven't even ever met in real life. We have friendships. We use this word sometimes to refer to really an acquaintance, someone that we've met, but that's it. We don't necessarily have a deep or intimate connection with that person. But we often use this word quite casually. My definition of a friend has pretty much always been someone that I feel like I can be completely myself around. Someone that I don't have to hide from. I don't have to hide my flaws or maybe the bad parts of me. I can just completely let go and be free to be myself. And the people with whom I'm able to do this those are what I consider to be my true friends. And God, I really have been blessed to have to have had a lot of people in my life that fit this description. Um, and that's just such a beautiful, wonderful thing. Obviously, I'm not sad right now. I'm just so grateful to have so many people in my life that I can say this applies to. Um, so back to the TED Talk. In this video, she talks about all healthy friendships having three key components: positivity, consistency, and vulnerability. And as I was watching her video, it really struck me how some of the friendships I've had in my life that at one point were quite healthy and did, in fact, have all three of these things. I tend to agree with her analysis about this, that when any one of those things is lacking, then the friendship becomes either unhealthy or just dissolves completely. I think that this trilogy really applies to all relationships, not just friendships. The first one, positivity. If your interactions with someone are repetitively negative, it's not going to be a healthy relationship. If the positivity does not outweigh the negativity, that's not going to be a healthy relationship. And eventually, one or both people is going to disappear, is going to want to walk away from that if it's not making them feel good a majority of their interactions with that person. The second one, consistency. Man, I have so many dear friends that I love so much, but we live very far from one another, and it takes time and energy to continue to invest in those relationships that you really care about. A lot of my dearest friends are parents, so they're often just all over the place, tending to the needs of the kids. And so as a single person, I really do my best to try to initiate contact, because I know that they're not going to, not because they don't want to, not because they don't care, but because they're so distracted by all these other things in their lives. And my dearest friends who fall into this category, every time I make that effort to contact them, they're always so grateful, because they were meaning to contact me, and whatever happened in their lives prevented them from doing that. And so when we do finally connect again and share again, it's just absolutely beautiful. And they're grateful to me for putting in that investment, because I care so much about them. And of course, when we talk, I get I get a return on that investment, because we're sharing positivity again. And the third one is also really important, and that's vulnerability. If you can't be vulnerable with someone, they're really not your friend. If you feel like you have to hide from them, or you can't show them all the parts of you, even the parts of yourself you may not like very much, then that person's really just an acquaintance. I mean, there's someone maybe you spend time with them, maybe you hang out with them, but if you can't allow or won't allow yourself to be vulnerable with them, they're not really your friend either. And after I watched this video, I was really thinking about some of my past relationships, and how, one or more of those components, ceased to be, suddenly wasn't there, and how that affected the friendship. And also other cases where one, disappeared but then came back. Friendships that seemed like maybe they had fallen apart, but then one of us disappointed the other. And we had to reconcile that. And I've had that happen before. I'm so grateful for that too, that I've actually had, friends that really disappointed me or hurt my feelings in some way. And I was willing and able to forgive them, and they, expressed remorse for what they did. They really stepped up and took responsibility for their actions. I was able to forgive them. We were able to heal that hurt and move forward, and be even stronger friends because of it. My best friend is actually a great example of this. Because, there were times where we weren't communicating at all for a length of time. And then we were able to find each other again and reconcile that. And are, I think now, just as close as we've ever been because of those three things. Every time we interact with each other, it's largely positive. We're vulnerable with one another. I'm sharing what's going on with me, good and bad, and vice versa. And the consistency, we both make an effort to spend time together and to connect and communicate with one another. And it's, man, is that such a great investment, I think, at least on my end, I think on his too. But it also got me thinking about another thing that Esther Hicks said in a video I listened to recently, and that is that all relationships end. And you know, in reality, that's kind of a true statement, isn't it? Because even if one or both people die, which is inevitable, even if you're friends all the way till the time you die, when you pass on, that relationship ends as well. So even the best relationships, even the lifelong relationships and friendships do end eventually. And it got me thinking about two people that I have met since I have lived where I'm currently living. And both of them absolutely 100% fit into this category of friends. They were absolutely dear friends. We had all three pillars of the friendship trilogy. There was very clear frientimacy with both of them. One of them was also a romantic partner to a degree, and but the other one was always just a friend. But both of them were such dear friends to me. I was very vulnerable with both of them, and vice versa. We shared some very intimate fears and doubts and things, about ourselves and about our past, and it was and honestly, both of these guys, they were both men. When I was talking with my other friends about them, I would refer to them as growth partners even. We were that for each other. Like, we were very supportive in each other's growth, even when it was hard or tricky or scary. And that was beautiful. And I grew so much from those relationships, and I know they did too. And both of these guys I'm no longer communicating with. And I can't for sure say that, they're over. Maybe it's on hiatus. Maybe it's over. I don't know. But after these, watching these videos, I've been thinking about this. And one of them has an avoidance pattern, which he knows he has and has previously shared with me. And I suspect that's what's going on now, too, is some form of avoidance. I honestly don't know because we haven't communicated in so long. And the other one, he found himself in a very similar kind of relationship, a sort of toxic relationship, much like the one I had previously had that I've spoken to you guys about in previous videos. And man, it broke my heart to watch him in that situation, to watch him repeat the same mistakes that I had made over and over and over again. And in both cases, with both of these guys, it had sort of come to a point in the relationship where it was just out of balance. There was an energy imbalance in the relationship. And the energy was flowing in one direction, and so there wasn't, a reciprocal exchange back. In the case of the one in the toxic relationship, he acknowledged what was happening. He was aware of it. He knew he was not being a good friend to me, even when I was being a good friend to him. But he wasn't ready. He wasn't able to really do anything about it, to change his behavior, because he was sort of sucked into this other relationship, and that's where all of his energy was going. I never judged him for this because I know exactly what that's like. I've been there. If anything, I just felt compassion for him. Um, and apparently, this is something he just needed to do. The last time he and I spoke, he had planned on ending this relationship. We didn't speak for many, many months. And when we finally did speak, and I asked him because I knew from some other messages, I knew that it appeared as if he was actually still in this relationship that he told me he was ending. And I asked him, did you break this pattern some other way than, walking away and ending the relationship? And he said, yes, but it was a long story. He'd have to explain. And I was very curious about that and wanted to know. And so we did end up meeting again in person, and he told me the story. I'm sure there's more to it than he actually shared with me, but from what I gathered from what he told me, it really seemed like he, in fact, didn't break this pattern. He just continued it for 5 more months and then finally broke it off right before he and I actually, got together to speak in person. And so it appears that this is just an experience he really needed to have. Learning from someone else's experience isn't nearly as powerful as your own, for sure. And but honestly, after that conversation, first off, I was sad because his energy at the end of that relationship, his energy had completely changed. And it really felt like the person in front of me was not the person that I knew before. And I did grieve that. I tapped on it, on the loss of my friend who, as far as I can tell, doesn't exist anymore, like the person I knew. Maybe he's not totally gone, but it certainly seemed that way when we were talking. Everything about his vibration had shifted, and I understand that. I was poisoned, I guess you could say, in my previous toxic relationship, so I understand what that's like. But then after that, the emotion that came over me the most was, again, gratitude. That I'm just so grateful and even proud of myself that when his behavior towards me was not what I'm deserving of, was not respectful, was not, worthy of the relationship that we had, and I chose to walk away. I didn't fight. I didn't, create a conflict. I just said, that doesn't work for me. I'm going to focus my attention and energy elsewhere, and stop offering my energy to this. Or really, at the time, what I wanted to do was I did not want to feed into his pattern, which was feeding into her pattern. I didn't want to participate in that anymore. So I made a conscious choice to walk away. And after I met with him, I felt this intense gratitude because everything he shared with me of what had happened in those previous 5 months we weren't talking, it reinforced that I absolutely made the right decision. And that made me so happy. That I'm grateful that I wasn't around to watch him make that same mistake over and over and over again for those months, because that really would have been painful for me too, in addition to him. So yeah, that made me so happy that I was strong enough to honor myself and my boundaries. And yeah, I'm still, even now, I'm very, very pleased with that decision, and that I did that in the other relationship, the avoidant relationship as well. And, the toxic relationship that I've previously referenced in other videos, I'm even grateful for that, because that relationship taught me these lessons that I then used in these other relationships. And it's in a very empowering way. I'm just so happy that I acknowledge my own value and am honoring and asserting my boundaries in these relationships. Because Shasta Nelson was right. You really do need all three. You need You need an interaction that's largely positive, that's consistent for both of you, and where you're willing and able to be vulnerable with that person. And I'm just delighted to have learned that lesson so early in life. I mean, I'm still relatively young, and that lesson is going to serve me so well as I get older. And if you haven't already learned it for yourself, I hope this is helpful to you. If you can learn from my previous mistakes and successes, I truly hope you can, and that that's helpful for you. And while I do agree that all relationships do eventually end, I also acknowledge that their effect on me and my life don't. These people, even relationships that appear to be completely over, that are finished, I no longer talk to these people, we don't see each other, one or both of us is no longer making an effort. There are a lot of ways a friendship can end. You could have a dramatic, falling out. There could be an actual conflict or fight of some sort. But more often, it's just people tend to drift apart. They have different goals or things that interest them. One person grows and the other one doesn't. That happens a lot. People outgrow one another. It doesn't have to necessarily be, this dramatic, like, oh, I hate you, I never want to see you again. Sometimes things just end, they fade away, they drift apart. Or if the friendship, is really strong and continues for the rest of your life, then eventually one or, both of you is eventually going to pass on. So while I do agree that with Esther Hicks, that all relationships end, I also acknowledge that their effect on my life does not. The effect of that friendship on your life, on each other's lives, you will forever be changed by the interaction and connection with that person. So the two people I've spoken about in this video, while we're not communicating anymore, they absolutely still have an effect on my life. The connection we once had has completely changed the trajectory of my life in both cases, and for the better. Even though, we're no longer investing in the relationship we once had, I know that my life is forever changed for having known them, and I'm pretty confident that their lives have too. So just the fact that relationships inevitably end does not diminish their value. The connection that I had with them, it remains energetically. I know I still think of them from time to time. Things remind me of them, especially if I see something that might interest them, because when we were communicating, we would share things that we thought might support the other's growth. That still happens. And I haven't spoken to them, but I'm quite confident again that the same thing probably happens to them. So just because we're no longer speaking doesn't mean that connection wasn't worth something. And it really, truly was. And I cherish it. Whether it's over or not, I continue to cherish the connection we once had. Holds tremendous value for me. If you're at all interested in more information about that, you should check out the link to the TED Talk below. I'm going to put it in the comments section so that you can watch it yourself and maybe reflect on your own relationships and which ones are continuing to serve you, which ones are healthy, and which ones are maybe not continuing to serve you anymore. So you can, make a decision where you want to spend your valuable time and energy. All right, I hope that was helpful for you guys, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye-bye.